Fans, we're back. Big day in college football yesterday. Start out with UT Buffalo, non-conference game, but saw a lot of important stuff yesterday.
Well, to me, there's a few things going on right now with Tennessee that I'm really happy about. Bray continues to be excellent.
Yes.
D'Anthony Arnett and a couple others, especially D'Anthony Arnett, he had 2 touchdown catches. He's not Justin Hunter. Nobody's going to replace Hunter. But he's clearly already living up to his bill. He's a very high school recruit out of Michigan. He made 2. He only had 3 catches. 2 were touchdowns. They were both of his touchdowns were exceptionally tough catches to make.
Right.
That's enthusiasm. And to me, I know Buffalo's not a great team by any means. They're 1-4. But they had actually played close to some of the Pittsburgh, who blew out number 16 Florida on Thursday night. They played close to Pittsburgh for a half. Nobody had just ran over Buffalo and dominated. They had 400 something yards of offense against Pittsburgh. They had just a little over 200 against Tennessee. We're getting better, and that's the thing that I'm happy with. Tennessee is getting better. And especially, I think this is the best team we've had since 2006 or 2007. Probably since 2006, because the last few years under Fulmer, even under Kiffin, under Dooley last year, even when we played bad teams, we would still struggle to beat them. Now we've took a step now that we're clearly better than the weaker teams on our schedule.
Right.
Clearly ready to dominate those teams. I'm not as concerned now that we're going to get beat by the Vanderbilt and Kentucky. Last year I was sweating bullets in the last few years that we're going to get beat by Vanderbilt, Kentucky, whoever. And we lost to Wyoming under Fulmer. You just had to sweat those games out. But I'm confident this year that we're going to blow teams out that are worse than us.
Now, one big thing yesterday, Devon Young finally saw action.
Immediately, 42-yard punt return as soon as he touched the ball.
He did impressive yesterday.
And now that Derek Rogers is not going to be returning kicks.
Honestly, that 42-yard return may be the longest punt return we've had in several years. We've been terrible in that part. We've been near last in the country. I wish we had him the entire year.
Yeah.
He did bobble one, I think it was, and dropped the pass. But it's his first game right in front of his home crowd. Just immediately to strike out, he was just a shoestring tackle away from being
right.
out.
Yeah.
The offensive line blocked there yesterday. Buffalo had been decent against the run so far this year, not great by any means, but we hadn't been able to run against anybody. We'd barely been able to run against shadows. The offensive line blocked a lot better yesterday. And honestly, if Torn pulled up and tripped over the grass a couple of times, he probably had 150 yards rushing instead of 110.
Right. He did have a couple of trips that where basically he was trying to move faster than what he could.
He just got his feet crossed up.
Dry land falling is a horrible thing.
You would know.
Not some dry land stop stumbles. I saw it. But we're getting better in that. The defense, like I said, next week is one of those games we really need to win.
Next week is the Georgia game.
If you can beat Georgia, you put yourself in a really good position to control your destiny in the East.
Right. Because Florida's in trouble.
Florida, Alabama just beat them yesterday.
They beat them mercilessly.
Luke and I watched the second half of the game.
They were just pounding them. They were they were trying to put players out of the game, and they were succeeding.
In the first half, there were some extracurricular antics by Florida early on. Florida scored a touchdown, a 65-yard touchdown bomb on the first play of the game. The first offensive play of the game, I should say. The first play of the game was the kickoff. They scored on a touchdown bomb the first offensive play of the game. And they got all hyped up and were talking trash like Florida tends to do. And they got their hot-headed Will Muschamp as their coach. He's always complaining, cussing.
Well, he cries like a girl. Steve Spurrier, at least when he won, he was good at it.
Right before Alabama scored their first touchdown of the game, a Florida player took a punch at an Alabama player. And it was on from them. Alabama just, I don't like Alabama, can't stand them, can't stand Florida either. I hate that Alabama got a big win, but I'm glad that Florida got crushed. That's the only way I can say it. But Alabama just mercilessly destroyed them.
Well, Cody Parker, he is a huge Florida fan. And he's a legit Florida fan. I mean, he doesn't like Florida just because. I mean, I guarantee you, he can go down and name the depth chart to him. Right before the second half started, he sent out a tweet. Want to watch somebody get thrown to the Wolves? Turn it to CBS right now. And that's essentially what happened to Florida's backup quarterback.
Brantley, Alabama, I'm not sure how long he's going to be at, probably the rest of the year. I didn't hear for sure if it was ACL, that's what it looked like. One of Alabama's huge, ferociously mean linebackers grabbed him and his cleat caught in the ground. And he just twisted him down while his leg went the other way. Mm-hmm. It looked pretty rough on the field. I'm pretty sure he's out for the year now. And their backup, all their backup quarterbacks have been option quarterbacks brought in to run the spread option for Urban Meyer. And they converted them all to tight ends. And they only have a true freshman backup. And maybe a walk-on or something like that after that.
And I'll tell you, their backup was hurting by the end of that game. They were taping him.
He was being taped, and he was limping pretty bad before that game was over.
Florida has LSU next week. I can't imagine it's going to get much better.
LSU, who may have a better defense than Alabama. I mean,
so I expect Florida's going to have a rough time the rest of the year. They still have to play LSU, Georgia, South Carolina. If Tennessee can beat Georgia, it's going to be tough against LSU and Alabama. I think they can beat both of them. I don't know that they will. I think they can, especially LSU, because for whatever reason LSU's vulnerable. Like I was speaking earlier to Patrick and everybody, that LSU, as long as they've got John Chavis, I know that they're going to have trouble defending passes. And that's what happens when you have a Chavis defense. He has trouble.
The Mustang package is not the way to go.
And that's we stayed with them last year. Actually, Matt Sims was able to throw the ball pretty effectively on them. The only thing he was.
And if Matt Sims can throw the ball on you, can darn sure better bet Tyler Bray can.
So, if we've always played well against LSU. If we can somehow beat Georgia, Georgia's got back on track a little bit now. They beat Mississippi State 24-10 this week. And Mississippi State, God, they've fallen apart.
I honestly thought they might have a shot
they were
competing for the Western Championship.
I thought they might have been overhyped a little bit, but they were overhyped quite a bit by the look of things. Because they've been just getting beaten the heck out of them by everybody. They're the only West team that had any trouble yesterday. I didn't actually see whether Ole Miss even played or not.
I don't even know if they did.
Ole Miss is awful. No.
Speaking of the West, LSU just destroyed Kentucky.
It was a methodical game. It was 14-0 at halftime, and then
it got ugly in the second half.
It was 35-0 at one point, but LSU just dominated. Kentucky's really bad too. LSU did what they had to do to dominate them without particularly putting a whole lot of effort into it, waiting for Florida this
And Arkansas had the big come from behind win against future SEC rival Texas A&M.
They'll be back to a yearly game next year for those two. And is at Texas Stadium. Come down. Arkansas was down by, I want to say it was 35-21 or something. It was a big deficit at one point. And Arkansas managed to fight and claw and get back.
Another team that Tennessee has to play this year.
That'll be a tough game. I mean, Tennessee's next 5 or 6 games are tough, with Arkansas, LSU, Georgia, South Carolina.
We don't really catch a break till MTSU comes to town for homecoming.
South Carolina took a hard loss to Arkansas. A hard loss to Auburn yesterday. Their offense, Lattimore ran for like 180 against Auburn or something like that. Auburn's got a terrible defense so far this year too, which is what I don't understand. They've given points to everybody. South Carolina came out there and couldn't score. They couldn't score. I mean, Stephen Garcia, their senior quarterback, I want to say a 3 or maybe 4 year starter, just came out and turned it over and turned it over and turned it over. I was surprised Spurrier stuck with him the entire game.
Actually, a very un-Spurrier-like move.
They were talking to him during the game that he was liable to pull him at any time, but he stuck with him and he kept throwing interceptions. And Auburn looked sort of bad too and had some turnovers themselves. And they managed to squeak out a 16-9 win, which I think it was maybe 16-13, whatever. It's 16-13 because they both missed extra points in the game. And it's just South Carolina's had 13-9 for the longest time, and Auburn managed to get that last touchdown in.
Outside the SEC, Clemson, they out-beamered Virginia Tech.
I'll say this now for Clemson. with the ACC being terrible, and it's pretty terrible, if they can keep their head straight, they're probably going to go undefeated this year, at least in the bowl game. I mean, they beat Auburn pretty badly, actually, because, like I said, Auburn's defense.
They're looking better than South Carolina at this point.
Auburn gave up 34 points or whatever to Mississippi State, who's been playing bad. Auburn gave up a bunch of points to Clemson. Gave a bunch of points to Florida Atlantic for Florida Atlantic. I think they gave 14 to them. And Florida Atlantic only scored 3 points all year before they played Auburn. But, mysteriously, Auburn comes out and defensively just dominates South Carolina. But Clemson, they beat Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech. They don't have that much left. Miami's really down. Florida State, they've already beat Florida State. They're not going to lose a game in the conference. Last year Virginia Tech lost to that one AA team and then ran the table in the ACC. So Clemson's got a good shot at running the table now. And, if it comes down to it, and Oklahoma's probably undefeated, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were, because frankly the Big 12 is not that good at all this year, the Big 11, whatever they are. And there's no championship game for them to play in this year, so they don't have an extra shot to get beat by anybody. If they're undefeated, if Clemson's undefeated, who do you pick out of those two?
What if Wisconsin's still undefeated?
I don't think Wisconsin will go undefeated, but they could.
To me, they beat the toughest team in the Big 12 in Nebraska.
Wisconsin always, we'll see what happens. Wisconsin usually tends to fall apart at least one game of the year.
Of course, they're one that do have to deal with the championship game this year.
Yeah, they'll have the championship game. They'll still have to play, Michigan probably and Ohio State. Michigan's undefeated too. It wouldn't be surprised if they go undefeated because I hate them so bad.
So,
Boise State is almost assuredly going to go undefeated, and they got the big win over Georgia.
We talk about, not just us, people who talk sports talk about BCS busting every year. And boy, if you talk about a year for it this year.
I'll say this. The SEC team, if you can go undefeated, you're in. My issue would be, I think that, possibly a one-loss SEC team could probably deserve it more over a Clemson or a Boise State, or maybe even Oklahoma, because they don't play that good a team.
This is true.
Shoot. I don't see how Alabama wouldn't go undefeated in any of those conferences, or LSU. And probably even maybe Florida or somebody would go undefeated in their conferences too. Especially the ACC. Like I said, Virginia Tech lost to a one AA team and then went undefeated and then got blown out in their bowl game. It's just they beat all their ACC teams and lost to the other teams they played. So. It's early October though.
So a lot of college football in play.
Everybody's going to have a bad game. Clemson may lose tomorrow or lose next Saturday if they play. You just never know. I just don't really see anybody playing as well as them in that conference or even close to it. The same with Oklahoma. Texas is playing all right now. But that'll be a big game, I guess. The big hatred bowl, since everybody hates Texas now.
And they should. They should. Texas is a terrible institution. I hope no one ever schedules them ever again.
I'm not even sure. I don't know that there's a Pac-10 team left undefeated now.
I think
Oregon has the one loss to LSU. LSU right now has the strongest case for being number one, having beaten Oregon and went to West Virginia, beat West Virginia. Oklahoma, they keep up there in the rankings, and it's silly to me the way they do that, because you can ask people, why do you have Oklahoma ranked number one? And they'll tell you, well, they don't play that good of a schedule this year, so they're probably going to go undefeated. So I'm going to rank them number one. Well, that's just not really good logic to me.
No,
it's not because they're the best team. It's because people feel they have the best shot of going undefeated.
Right.
So that's odd and sort of unfair to other teams that are probably better than them. But LSU and Alabama should be 1 and 2, and you could select whichever one you want to put one, whichever one 2, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. But while they're playing big games, the SEC, Oklahoma played Ball State yesterday and won 60-something.
That's where former Eagle coach Scott Stockwell was a cheerleader at. Well, it was a good idea making him coach. Same guy that took the crown out of the field.
Indeed.
Why
does that field have a humpy?
We better level it. It drained so well after that. Good move, cheerleader. On other football news, I talked online the other day to Bob Polk, the manager of the Civic Coliseum. They delivered the indoor turf for the Nighthawks, the new Arena League team that's going to come to Knoxville.
We'll see how long they actually stay in Knoxville. We lost the.
We are the masters.
We lost a we, as in the Knoxville area, lost a championship level arena football team. Why? Why did they lose them back?
They wouldn't upgrade those terrible seats.
They wanted better seats for their fans. And the Coliseum refused.
And on the rest we'll talk about terrible seats. But, this is a team that could be big here, too, because it featured Andy Kelly and Troy Fleming.
And you know what, folks? You know what that team did? They moved just a couple hours away from us. And yet, you know what they're still doing? Winning championships.
So, that's one of those things. And baseball playoffs have started.
Baseball?
I don't really keep up with it. I just thought I'd throw it out there. It's football
Pretty
season.
sure the Yankees are probably going to win. Or
Yeah.
the Phillies, one of the two. They're the team that spend the most money, so that's what happens in baseball.
It's money ball, right?
A lot of
I do
NFL
wanna
stuff
see
going
that.
on today. The Titans won today. Beat the Browns 31-13. Titans are doing better than I thought they would, but Houston also won. I think Houston's 4-0. Titans are 3-1.
The Titans, of course, suffered the loss of former assistant coach Mike Heimerdinger yesterday. Finally lost his battle with cancer. So probably an emotional day for the Titans, I would think.
Yeah. Detroit, shocking people. They're undefeated, I believe. Buffalo, big win over New England last week. I'm not sure how they've done this week so far, but they shocked New England in pretty much the football world. Tom Terrific had 3 or 4 interceptions in that game, but he only had about 4 all of last year, so that was a big surprise to people. Colts continue to stink out loud without Peyton Manning. Not won a game yet.
Never knew blue could be an odor.
Cowboys apparently pummeled another one today.
Tony Romo, honestly, they'd be better off putting Jessica Simpson at quarterback at this point.
She would look better playing the position. It's inexplicable with him to me. It's like one game he makes 5 amazing plays, the next game he makes 5 boneheaded ones. You'd think after being a multi-year NFL veteran, you could cut back on the boneheaded stuff, but I mean he continues to do it. It's just like a couple of weeks ago when they lost in the season opener. What other NFL quarterback runs with the ball out here like a loaf of bread and tries to dive in from the 2-yard line with 3 defenders in front of him, holding the ball like this, head first. Boom, fumble, game over.
Maybe Michael Vick could pull that off, but you'd never see him try it.
No, Vic.
He would at least protect the ball and then go fight some dogs.
Philly's off to a bad start, so I expect this is probably going to be Andy Reid's last year unless they get this turned around. I mean, to have all the money, they were buying everybody in the offseason.
They probably spent more than any team but New England.
I mean, they were just throwing down money right and left, which New England didn't spend that much money. They got their players on the cheap.
But they got some big names.
It's not working out for them, though, because their defense is terrible.
Which is odd considering they added Albert Hainsworth.
I mean, Hainsworth's not working out. Usually that would work. Everything works out for the cut, but this year, if New England doesn't score 45 points and Tom doesn't play perfect, they're going to get beat because their defense is awful. But I just don't get Romo at this point in his career still making so many terrible boneheaded plays so consistently. Buffalo's quarterback, I think he's maybe a third year. He went out there against New England, looked wonderful. Aaron Rodgers, he made a few mistakes early on, dominating quarterback now. Drew Brees didn't look particularly great his first few years in San Diego, got traded off. New Orleans.
Worked out okay.
A couple of years later, he dominated. Most veteran quarterbacks in the NFL that start are starting veteran quarterbacks because they stopped making boneheaded decisions. But for some reason, Jerry Jones, it doesn't matter what Romo does. Oh, he's my quarterback alone. You'd think the coach would be the one to say that, but it's Jerry Jones the one to say that.
Jerry has an interesting ownership style.
It's sort of Al Davis-like.
Well, fans, that should probably wrap it up for this week. We'll be back next week. I hope to see you all Friday night at Campbell County High School and Thursday night at the Fall Middle School.
Big game for Georgia. We may be at Twin Cove watching the fifth.
In fact, I encourage you all to come out and watch the game with us at Twin Cove.